So welcome to the 10th anniversary Power of the Purse networking session. Today's session is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Community Conversations with Andrea Hawkins. I'm Summer, the United Way host for this session. A couple of housekeeping items to start. Just letting someone in. Please just keep yourself muted if you're not speaking, and feel free to use the chat function at any time, as I'm going to be monitoring it today for any questions. At 11:55, we will begin to wrap up and transition into the program, and I will also place the link for you guys to be redirected to the event page for the program that starts promptly at 12 p.m. Now I'm going to turn it over to Andrea.
Excellent, excellent. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. I see we have a small group right now. Maybe others will join. If they're anything like me, I'm constantly needing a couple of minutes to get from one Zoom to another. So I think if we have this small of a group, we can just go around and do some introductions, and then I'll give you a little bit of my background and we'll jump right into it. So I see we have Regina. So why don't we start with you, Regina? If you wouldn't mind just saying hello, letting us know your name and what organization you're here from.
Sure. My name is Regina Bourne. I am from Travelers Insurance Company. I've been here 20 years and I currently work in compliance as a manager.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining. Laura.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Laura Gelajauskas. I am joining from Pratt & Whitney. I work in the Human Resources Department in Connecticut, East Hartford based. Pleasure to join the session. Look forward to the remarks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Caitlin.
Hi, good morning. I'm Caitlin McCall. I work for TD Bank. I work in the business strategy and effectiveness group, but I'm also a former recruiter and building out some programs that actually cover some of this topic. So I'm very excited to join today.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you. Barb.
Hello, Barb Ladaney. I'm with the Hartford Insurance, been here 17 years, and I'm a director in the claims department.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Paula, good to see you. Oh, you might be speaking on mute or multitasking because you're probably busy. So we're going to go on to Jackie. Jackie, we're just doing a quick hello. Jackie, good to see you. A quick hello, if you can just tell us your name and what organization you're part of.
Yes, good morning. I'm from Talcott Resolution.
Great. Awesome. Nice to see you this morning. And let me just make sure we don't have anyone else that's maybe not on video. Let me see. I think that was it. Fantastic. Well, good morning again. I do have a little presentation that I'm going to share right now. I do like to add a little bit of a disclaimer in that I live in Glastonbury, Connecticut. So for those of you that are familiar with the town, our internet is, well, let me say this. We are really good at farming and cow tipping. Internet, not so much. So bear with me. If you are having any trouble hearing me, my voice gets blurred, just don't be bashful about saying, hey, we can't hear you. And I will slow down and back up and make sure that I repeat anything that might have been missed. So can I just get by way of verbal or thumbs up? Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we're gonna jump into it here. And I will also warn you that let's see. So Paula's having a little difficulty hearing audio. Paula, are you able to hear us? I might suggest that you log out and maybe log back in. So I'm not sure if she can hear. Hopefully, if she heard that, she'll text us back. So in this 25 minutes that we have together, as you can imagine, 30 minutes is not a lot of time to cover all that we want to cover in this topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So leadership in the journey to inclusions and DE&I strategies to create an engaged workplace is what we're talking about. what I love is that we have some folks on here who are in HR or who have done hiring, and DE&I is an important topic right now. And I'm sure that you're having conversations in your organizations about how to do more of it, how to do it better. So before we jump into it, though, I will give you a little bit of my background, and some of you will recognize some of the places that I've been. So over the course of my career, I have been in the Hartford area for the most part. I had a little stint down in North Carolina, but for the most part, I was here. So prior to being the founding partner of Leading Culture Solutions, I had a very non-traditional track. I went to college at night while I worked. So part-time for 25 years. It was quite a haul to get my associate's degree, and then my bachelor's degree in business, and then my master's degree in organizational behavior, but all worth it. I would not change my journey for anything. It's made me the person that I am. But over that course of time, I did work at some of the companies that some of you already work at, or you may have worked at in your past. But I've been at Aetna, Cigna, MassMutual, the Hartford, United at Optum, Prudential, and TIA Crest. And I did just about every job. I did accounting when I first started my career. I branched into operations management, which led me into process improvement, and then into large IT project management. Then I meandered into some product development. That led me to some marketing and communications. I mean, I really traveled around organizations. I like to tell people that I created my own adult rotation program. And so if you look at my resume, you might say, who are you and what are you trying to be? And I'll be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. So, and that is okay. I consider myself a lifelong learner. Because I've had this very strange path in my career, it's lent it very well to consulting. So about, I'm going to say 5 years ago, I joined a firm called the Clarion Group, and that's what I did. I did some business consulting and helped organizations with human resource type consulting. So we were very interested in strategic planning and helping organizations with culture transformation and organizational effectiveness. And I loved the work. It was very human centered. And that was so important to me because I did have a range of experiences, as you can imagine, having worked in all those different cultures. And right, I had some fantastic leaders. I had some horrible leaders, and all of it had really shaped me and made me understand that it was really important to make sure that leaders understand that an organization is not buildings, an organization is not technology, but an organization is people, right? So I was really focused on how do we help the people feel really excited about getting up every morning and coming into work and doing their best work. And so that's what I've leaned into. So I did this work with the Clarion Group for almost 3 years. And then I knew that I wanted to add a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion because I had experience with teams, and my most diverse teams were my strongest teams. And so I wanted to figure out, how do I bring that to other organizations and help them have these rich, diverse teams that bring different perspectives together? So today what we're going to do is talk about what is diversity, what is equity, what is inclusion, and how does it play in the workplace? And I want to offer some strategies, but more importantly, I want to hear from all of you because, right, there's no such thing as a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert. And if anyone tells you that they are an expert, you should run, because to be an expert means that you've had to live every possible experience. And who, have any of us lived every possible experience? I can speak from my own point of view. I can speak about what it's like to be an African-American woman. I can tell you what it's like to be a mother. I can tell you what it's like, to work in corporate America. But there are a lot of things that I can't tell you about. So I think it's important for us in this work to learn about one another so that we can really respect and value what we each bring to the workplace and how to really increase engagement and support inclusion. But I want to start with diversity. So what is it, right? So the Oxford Dictionary would describe it as variety. They go further to say the practice or quality of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, etc. This list could go on for, hundreds of factors, right? It's a lot of things. So I would love for you to jump into the chat if you don't mind. And I'd love for you to share, looking at this diversity wheel here in the picture here in front of you. Tell me what you notice about the inner circle versus the outer circle. And I would love for you to just chat that to me. Any difference you notice from the inner circle and the outer circle? No one? Thank you, Caitlin.
Looks
We
like
cannot change the inner circle. Yep, you don't have control over. Thank you for that. And thank you for those who have joined us. That's exactly right. So, right, the inner circle are things about ourselves that we can't necessarily change. That's exactly right. So, is there anything that you notice that used to be on the inner circle that is now on the outer circle? And you can come off mute if you prefer to speak live, you can, or you can chat. Thank you, Gina. Gina said gender, and that's exactly right, right? So gender is a social construct, right? People are self-identifying their gender. No longer can we just assume someone's gender by looking at them. So that's important, because when we meet people, then it's important to respect each other's humanity by asking, for example, what are your pronouns? Introducing, saying your name, and asking, what pronouns do you use? And so that is getting more and more regular. Maybe we don't always hear it, but we will see more of this as gender expression continues to evolve. So thank you for that. When you look at the inner circle and the outer circle, I'd love for you to pick one thing on the inner circle and one thing on the outer circle for how you identify. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute and thinking about, give me two, one from the inner and one from the outer for how you identify. Thank you, Julia. Race and gender. American-born woman with a family. Thank you, Myra. Age and work experience. Thanks, Diana. Age and gender. Age and gender. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Barb. So what's important here? A couple of people picked the same things, but other people picked other things, right? We don't necessarily identify the way someone else wants to have us be identified. And that's an important perspective for us all to keep in mind, that in order for us to really respect diversity, we have to understand the way people see themselves and how they want to be identified. So that's an important piece of, as we think about every single person, I always think about, I wonder where they fall or how they think about themselves when I think about this inner ring and I think about this outer ring. And it's important. The only way you can know that is to ask a person. So let's keep moving. So we talked about diversity. Let's move on to equity. So equity, Oxford is defining this as the quality of being fair and impartial. And I added on to it, it's really about giving people what they need to be their best self. So I love this chart here, right? So the equality versus equity. Equality shows us that everybody gets the same size box, no matter their situation. But when we have equity, Some people get 2 boxes, some people get a ramp if that's what they need. There's another visual like this that includes liberation. And when there's liberation, the fence is removed. So there are no barriers. So imagine that. That's true equity, is when there are no barriers. So who here knows what the platinum rule is? And like I said, feel free to come off of mute or chat me in the box. Does anyone know what the platinum rule is? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone answer. What's the golden rule? Who knows what the golden rule is?
Treat everybody
Someone's
how you
gotta
want to
know
be
the golden.
treated.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you. Treat
have a toddler.
people the way you want to be treated. Thank you for that. So, okay, if that's the golden rule, that to me aligns with equality, right? So the golden rule and equality kind of lines up. I'm going to treat people the way I want to be treated, right? But the platinum rule says treat people the way they want to be treated. So think about that for a second. Treat people the way they want to be treated. And when we think about equity, we should think the platinum rule, not the golden rule. Because we don't all want the same thing. We don't all need the same thing. But the only way that I can treat you the way you want to be treated is I have to understand who you are and what you stand for and what you value. That's what I have to know. That's the only way that I can treat you with equity. So for those of us that go to work every day, and we sometimes hear people say, well, I just want to come to work and I just want to do my job. I don't want to know what somebody did on the weekends. And I don't want to know if that person has siblings or doesn't have siblings. Like, that shouldn't matter. We should just come in and do our work. You can't possibly ever provide equity if you don't understand those things. So it really is about understanding who the human is that's in front of you, working with you, partnering with you. Let's move on to inclusion. So what is inclusion? The practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have physical or mental disabilities and members of other minority groups. I heard a metric, and I could be completely wrong here, but something like 40% of the workforce has a mental health issue that they're dealing with every day when they come into work. 40%. That's 4 in 10 people. It's amazing. And the pandemic has made that situation worse. People have felt isolated. So when we think about inclusion, we look at this picture and we have this picture of inclusion versus tolerance. Who here wants to be tolerated? Any hands up? Anybody here? No, no, right. No one wants to be tolerated. No one wants to be invited just because, right? Because I had to, I was forced to. There was a metric, right? People want to be invited in. They want their voice to matter. They want to be valued for the work and the experience that they bring to the table. And I'd love it if you would chat me. When you think about coming to work every day, what are those things that make you feel included? So if you don't mind popping in the chat for me, what makes you feel included? Oh, and Gina says a warm welcome by other staff. Absolutely, absolutely. Being asked my opinion and or my recommendations. Yep, absolutely. Acknowledge differences, not ignoring them. I love that one. knowing that my voice matters. So Regina, I'm going to ask you a question, not to put you on the spot, and feel free if you feel comfortable coming off mute. How do you know when your voice is mattering?
For me, I think when I say something and it's acknowledged, and maybe it's an idea and it's implemented. So it's you're listening, you're repeating, or you're inquiring about asking me to explain what I mean if you don't understand. So
thank you. Really nice example of active listening, right? So if you don't understand, asking for clarification, implementing the ideas that you put forward, absolutely all of that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So Caitlin says, being asked about my well-being, not just my work product, right? Because we're humans first, we're not machines. And guess what? The machines can never replace us. You know why? Because machines can't program themselves, right? Machines can't fix themselves. You still need a human, right? So it's always going to be about some human someplace. So thank you all for sharing. So we got about 8 more minutes. I have a little bit more to share with you, and I appreciate all of you being brave and courageous and sharing all of your ideas. And I hope people are taking away good suggestions here, because these are some great ways to be inclusive. But taking it a step further and thinking about how to create that inclusive environment. So let's start with the hiring process. So, right, so making sure you have inclusive language in job postings, right? Inviting people in that way. Make sure you have diverse interview panels and diverse candidate slates. So, right, people tend to hire people who are more like them. So having a diverse interview panels and candidate slates will ensure that you get a diverse selection of candidates. And then being careful of cultural fit for reasons for not hiring. That term cultural fit is really an indication of some level of bias. So I want to hire people who are more like me. Is that where you want your culture to go? Is, more like you, or do you need a new cultural direction? The next one, mentoring and advocacy. So make sure that underrepresented groups have mentors. Encourage and support advocacy. So what's the difference between mentoring and advocacy? Anybody know?
So it's like mentoring and sponsorship, essentially the difference. One where you provide support to an employee, but another where you actively champion that employee.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Thank you for that, Caitlin. And then creating formal rotation programs. Sometimes people come into a job, and when they get that job, it's right. We really don't know what we're going to be doing when we accept a position. We pray that it's going to be 50% of what the job description says. And I'm sure we all know that we've gotten into jobs where we thought, that's not at all what I thought this job was going to be. So, right, and why if we have a great candidate, we've spent all this energy hiring them, why would we just lose them because it's not a perfect job fit? Are there other places in the organization that their skills might be a good fit? So how do we make that a more formal process of rotating people around so that the employee can find something that's going to fit them well, and right, the organization is going to benefit from that? So just more to think about around that. Promotion and retention, being intentional, making sure that your underrepresented population are being considered in your succession planning. Making sure that every employee has a development plan, and that development plan is aligned with where they want to take their careers. Make sure that you're doing things to support the career path of all employees. So, right, employers want employees to be top notch and have the top skills, but don't always want to invest in training, for example. So how do you have the best skills if you don't have the training? Gina says, or can the org change practices to open the field for more kinds and types of folks to work there? Absolutely. Great suggestion. Conducting an annual employee engagement survey and doing something with that data. Right? So not just doing the survey, but actually taking action and making meaningful change. In your community, develop relationships with organizations who support marginalized groups. Those might be great places where you can bring people in to do internships so people can be exposed to the kind of work that you do. Make sure you're donating to nonprofits who support those underrepresented groups. Sometimes, right, I see organizations go to folks. Thank you, Summer. Great. Thank you. Donating to those nonprofits. Sometimes organizations will reach out to those nonprofits when they want diverse candidates, but they've not developed a relationship. So there's not a lot of desire from the nonprofits to help out. So make sure you're building those relationships and financially supporting those nonprofits. And then, volunteering. So I love that more and more organizations are having their employees volunteer, donate toward. I know Benevity supports a lot of organizations and helps them get donations to the nonprofits in the communities that folks work in. So that's another great way. And then my final slide talks about vendor management. So when we think about,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just was thinking maybe a decent time to get some final thoughts in, some words from everyone or any questions, just that way everyone can make it to the main event on time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Summer. So this was my absolute last slide. And this just talked about making sure you're working with diverse vendors to help you, right? And giving them positive feedback, not just, when things are going wrong, but telling them when things are going well. And here, yes, I was going to take a couple minutes for any questions that anyone might have. In our 2 minutes.
All right. Well, if there are no questions, I did put the link in the chat. Everyone could be redirected right over to the main event. Thank you again so much, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.